Oran, welcome back to Ballymena United Football Club. How does it feel to be here?
Yeah, it feels great. I'm very excited, and it's been a whirlwind week.
Tell me this, fans of my vintage will remember Oran Kearney, the Ballymena United player, with over 100 appearances playing Europe, play with your brother. What are your standout memories from your first spell at the club?
I think I'd just come back from university and had suffered actually a bad injury the year before playing for Myola, and it was very much, I think, because Kenny was here and I played for Kenny at Myola. I just said to him, can I do pre-season and any chance of taking a punt? Did pre-season, did well, earned a contract for the year, and then the rest is history, as they said. And it was an enjoyable time and one I look back on well, and still, many a good friend from those times.
It's a very different club and a very different league to those days as well. But what attracted you to the project here?
It is, and the league has changed dramatically over, I think, the past few years. And I think from my time at Ballymena, I really enjoyed it, and it was a good club to be around. And I think particularly you get a real sense of, I suppose, like a lot of clubs, where there was a real urgency to want to do well and a real desire for success. And it can be tough. We all know, in the league, there are certain teams that are probably quite dominant and that have been very dominant over the past decade, and it can be hard to break into that. But with that, it's a challenge, and it's one ideally that I think this club has the infrastructure, it has the fan base, it has a lot of good things going for it, which gives it an opportunity to do that.
What are your ambitions for Ballymena United going forward?
I think the ambitions are very short term, where there's a few things that feel probably quite strange in it. The first being that it's December time, it's mid season, and there was a game yesterday, and there's a game next Saturday. So there's not a huge amount of time for probably more medium to long term plan, and it very much is, I suppose, in a reactive way to deal with where we are at this point in time. So I think as we're getting in, developing relationships with all the players, and really trying to put my stamp on it, and to try and make a difference as soon as possible and get us moving up the league.
You've obviously worked with some of the current playing staff before in previous roles. What's your immediate assessment of the squad here at the Showgrounds?
Again, it's tough, where very much there are a few players that I do know, haven't worked with before. There's probably the majority of players I've probably come up against at different stages as well, but it can be very hard to gauge a real opinion of those players when they're not in your camp and they're playing for opposition. But with that, I think me coming in, everybody starts on a clean slate, and the key thing will be it's up to players, I suppose, to impress in training and to impress me, and to get themselves into a team, and ideally, as I say, get us moving forward.
Let's talk about your staff. Give us an insight into what your coaching team will look like going forward.
Again, as I say, it's been all sort of a bit rushed. And Barry Johnson will be coming in alongside me as an assistant. Barry, needs no introduction. I think has won the league a few times in that memorable Cliftonville era of the late and great Mr. Breslin, and a range of cups and experience in that goes with him. More importantly, he's got a really good job working in football in that football management company. He's on the pitch, regularly, maybe 14, 16 hours a week, coaching a lot of good young players in and around that Belfast region. So he knows his way around the changing room, he knows his way around Irish League football, but he also, more importantly, knows his way around the training pitch as well, which will be absolutely vital. So he's somebody probably had many a ding-dong with as a player. He's always one of those we've kept in contact with over the years and dealt with over different players and teams, and would always have been one that would have come up for a pre-season friendly, say at Distillery or anywhere else. So he's somebody probably that I've always respected in the game, and really looking forward to getting him in and getting to work with him. Secondly, then Michael Doherty's coming on board as goalkeeping coach. So again, Michael was someone, when I retired at 29 years of age and took over at Limavady, Michael was the goalkeeper there as a player. He then came with me to Coleraine. When he retired, you could see the ability that he had both on and off the field. Pushed at him to get his qualifications, and he's just gone from strength to strength, where he has his own goalkeeping academy now, but very much somebody that's been a huge part of my life and a huge part of my career over the last 16 or 17 years. So I'm delighted to be able to resume the ability to work with him as well, and he's a great fella.
So the first game in the dugout will be this coming Saturday against Portadown. What will the first days in the job look like in the build up to this game?
I think it's just a crash course where we'll have a short meeting probably on Tuesday night to say hello to the players and ideally lay down a few ideas and everything that we expect. But very much, I think it's the training ground and it's the training pitch where the hard work needs to be done. So we'll get to work this week. We need to be careful not to overload in relation to the amount of information and work. But in simple terms, I want to see a reaction of a new manager through the door, and I want to see a spring in everybody's step, and that's vitally important.
Then looking down the line, we've the Boxing Day derby game against Coleraine, your first against the Bandsiders since you left, and then the transfer window opening. Have you allowed yourself to even look as far forward as those two events?
Not particularly, and I think everybody will make what they want out of the Coleraine game, and Boxing Day events have always been over the years. They're showpieces and they're brilliant games, and as always, it'll take care of itself. No matter what, there's only 3 points available on that day, and that's all ideally that we'll look at from a team and from a coaching point of view. The window in January again, yes, it's upon us. It'll be upon us quickly as well. But as I said, it's important in the short period of time that we have that we make really good assessments about the players that we've got here. And I say there's no preconceived ideas. You're not coming in and saying that, for example, maybe somebody who hasn't played a lot of football this season or hasn't had a lot of joy, it doesn't mean that it's the end for them. It'll very much be down to how players apply themselves and what they show.
I suppose taking a step back and looking back on your managerial career, like you've had relative success at each of the clubs you've been at Limavady United, at Coleraine, at St Mirren. What's been the standout moment for you, do you feel, looking back on those clubs?
I think there was big moments at all of those clubs. Limavady was very much cutting your teeth in it, and it was an education where you were between washing kits, signing contracts, literally barb cutting the grass. I think you were doing everything, and it was the best education and the best introduction to football probably that you could have had. And we made great strides there in a short period of time, which then opened up the opportunity at Coleraine. And the Coleraine experience was brilliant as well. I think you look at probably where the club is now in relation to infrastructure and the whole aspect of the club, it took a huge amount of hard work from a lot of people to try and bring it to that place. And there were obviously things like Irish Cup wins were brilliant as well, and memories I think that I will have forever. The St Mirren experience was brilliant as well. It was something that was really keen to try and push and try and test myself at, and I've said it to a few people probably that year in management was probably worth 5-6 years of experience in relation to coming in. I think at the 3rd or 4th of September, the size of the squad, where the club was at in the league, and the fact that the window was shut, it made it probably one of the toughest challenges that I've ever come across in football. And to methodically work your way through that and to get to the transfer window, I think it was something like 21 players out or 22 players out in January and 10 in from a range of different nationalities, and then to go on the run that we went on towards the end of the season and gather enough pace to hit a playoff and to stay up was definitely up there with one of the biggest achievements as well, and a year that will absolutely stay with me for the rest of my life.
Part of that journey has also been a really positive track record of putting your faith in young players, and the progression of the likes of Patrick Kelly and Brad Lyons recently playing together in the Northern Ireland senior team, both players you'd brought through at Coleraine. How important is the success and pipeline of young talent coming through the Youth Academy here for your future plans?
I think it's massive, and all clubs will speak of identity, and all clubs will speak of or the locality and the pride in the locality, and I think that's something that's really, really important. But there's two key points in that, and probably the first one is I suppose it's having faith to throw those players in, which is important. But the second one is they've got to be good enough as well, and that's vitally important. And I think over probably the course of my time, I could probably name 8 or 9 players maybe that I've given a debut at 17 years of age, and that wasn't for any other reason, but those players were good enough and that those players were ready to go and do that. And probably on the Brad and PK one, probably one of the most interesting ones from a footballing perspective is, if you look at the story of both of those players, they both did not follow the pathway that a typical young player would follow. They were both highly thought of until about the age of 12. They both then, their development stunted. They didn't maybe grow at the rate that other players grew, and very much were forgotten about at 13, 14 and 15. But it was the ability to keep those people on track and keep them on board. They all of a sudden came of age again at 16 years of age, 15, 16, and you could see the development then go at a serious rate of knots. And I suppose the danger for both those players is if if their mindset's not right or they're not looked after properly, they can possibly turn away from the game because of that lack of faith or because of how things felt at that point in time. So, no, two great lads and great to see them doing well.
You've been in this game a long time. What are the non-negotiables for you as a manager in building a successful team?
I think there's simple things, and I think I always look for a team. Our work rate's really important, our energy is really important, and honesty is really important as well. And I think that's when you get that from your players, and you're not going to win every game, and I think we're all fully aware of that in the football. But I think there's a way to go about your business in a way that ideally that you want to try and build teams and build squads, and from that point of view, that starts all again now. And the key thing for me is to try and go and put those building blocks in place to do that.
What can fans expect from your team going forward in terms of identity?
As I said, I think it's very similar to what was just said, where it's mid-season, so there's a huge amount of assessments to do. There's a huge amount of risks. There's a huge amount of everything where, in relation to the training, in relation to everything else about how we go about that, where it can be very dangerous, for example, mid-season to make an unbelievable amount of changes to, say, training schedules, all of those types of things where you run the risk of overloading players and bringing in injuries and stuff like that as well. So there's a huge amount to think about there. But ideally, to me, the big onus is on the players. I want to see it, a definitive change in them. I want to see them out to impress not only myself but the fans as well. And I want to, see who wants to play in this team and who wants to be a part of it every Saturday.
Finally, Oran, do you have a message to the Ballymena supporters upon your appointment?
Yeah, I'm excited, and as I said, I had an enjoyable time here in my first time round, and it's been a surreal sort of 48 hours, 72 hours, where there's a lot of different things that have sort of come back, and a lot of different emotions have come back from probably at my time of playing here, and I really enjoyed that, and I could see, at particular times, when I think we had a promotion season and we had other times when there was big performances and big games, particularly here at the Showgrounds. And I remember the noise and I remember everything that has come with that. So I just urge them to get behind me, to get behind all of the players and really push us on for the second half of the season.
Thank you, Oran, and wishing you every success in your new years.
Thank you.